Sex isn't just friction and shallow fun. Sex is also the revenge on death. Consuela speaks her mind. David Kopesh was my professor, and it is true that he introduced me to the paintings of Velázquez and played Schubert for me while he watched me undress politely. Practical criticism was the class where I met Kopesh, and yes, the reading list included feminist critique. But only so our dear professor could skewer those women. The first heated debates between my teacher and the hardcore theory girls were tense for me, as I could hear both sides, all sides of the arguments. Cuban society is not exactly liberated, and I grew up surrounded by men who loved me, my father, my grandfather, my uncles, my brothers, who taught me to guard my beauty against the profane glances of men. Men are animals who only want your body, they told me. Men cannot be trusted, somewhat in accord with feminists. But I love men, and I trust you. Trust us, we know men, because that is what we are. Well, Kopesh taught me, personally, beyond the classroom, that men can be trustworthy animals. He said to me, "We've trained our brains to appreciate art and music and niceties, sure, but the body needs ravaging, or the body withers, and the soul goes to sleep." By this he meant sex that is not nice and polite, and was shocking at first. End of innocence, my coming of age. My teacher also had theories on why Americans like to preach monogamy and abstinence, to preserve testosterone for war and football. If we delivered our hormones more freely into the bodies of women, we would be too happy to kill each other. He taught me this as he licked between my toes and put each one separately into his mouth, sucking on them like little penises. Well, he would say cocks, but that is not my favorite word. I was excited by Dr. Kopesh's big library, but I tell you, learning to leave our intellect at the bedroom door yielded more valuable research. Not the knowledge my father expected when he paid my tuition, but college is for learning and dreaming, and if more of us remembered our dreams, we might not be so quick to deny that we are dying animals. Nightly during my breast cancer treatments, I climbed mountains, fell from cliffs, and wandered jungles, underwater, drowning, gasping for air, then woke up stunned to be awake and alone in a sunny room. In one of those nightmares, I was surrounded by lions, seemingly about to pounce on me at the center of the circle, and their eyes penetrated my eyes and heart to say, "Here you are, and you are in danger, but you are alive, you are beautiful, and if you are smart, you will survive even this." In the dream, I surrendered. I lowered my naked body to the filthy earth. And you know what happened? Those lions surrounded me and licked me all over. They licked my eyelids, my cheeks, my earlobes, my collarbones, my shattered breasts, my belly, my fur, my thighs, the backs of my knees, and the soles of my feet. This spirit of surrender carried over into my morning drive to the hospital for the devastation of so-called treatment. When my oncologist gave me the 60% survival statistic that day, I knew in my heart that I would be among those numbers who live, not by waging battle, but by succumbing to the horrible recommended surgery and the fact of death as well. Does anyone track us afterward to know what happens next? We in the numeric luck club who go on with our lives after the intimate encounter with the death monster? 2 weeks after I heard the statistics, I called Kopesh after not seeing him for over 8 years. The reasons we went our separate ways should be obvious. He was 62, I was 24. We were on different life stages, had different callings. It was New Year's Eve, 1999, and everyone around the globe awaited the Y2K end of the world, including me, singled out as I was. I asked David to photograph my D-cup breasts from all angles, memorialize them before my surgeon came at me with his purely loving desire to save my life, which called for the sacrifice of one breast. Talking it through equals now, we came to look at my sacrifice as another in a long line of human offerings to the gods. My former professor and I studied stories of sacrifice for several months after the world did not end. The breast was removed per doctor's orders, and Kapesh and I sat on his black leather sofa together, looking at pictures in books of Aztec pyres and Catholic crucifixions and so on. Him caressing the intact breast gratefully, even fondling my scar, as tribal Indian drum beats played through his iPod speakers. We were both more tender now, and he had to get over his initial revulsion and grief over the loss of my perfect youthful beauty. But that is the sweetness of the older man. He's dying too. He might not have the visible symbol of mastectomy to advertise it. No, it's more the daily indignities which Kapesh spoke of willingly now, his loose bladder, shrinking prostate, and low T that had left him less like a pouncing lion and more like a big pussycat. On one of those nights, we learned together what it means to make love. For David Kapesh, against his free spirit nature and enormous narcissism, had fallen in love with me, a mature woman who would soon move away from him to live her own independent life. Later in the new millennium, post-op, post-Kapesh, I started going out to dance clubs in the city alone late at night, lining up to get in the door at 10 p.m. in my red dress and suede-soled shoes, then grinding in the crowd with strangers as live Latin congas and saxophones thumped their sexy, earthy rhythms, and we welcomed the night pulse to move through our dying bodies. Please stop thinking I am a dumbass. I went on to law school after practical criticism. I have a highly regarded position. I wear designer suits and expensive shoes to my windowed office in a high-rise designed by a famous female architect whose name I cannot remember. But when I remember that I am dying, as you are too, is the view from the high-rise what I will cling to next time I go under the knife? Yes, maybe. And I will also be feeling everyone's bodies moving in time against the daily grind of striving for equality and justice against war and corruption. All this matters very much, and I have devoted my life to righting those wrongs, to liberating Cuba and all countries under control of dictators and corporations. Except for 3 nights of weeping, grieving lovemaking with my former professor, I lived without sex for 10 years post-cancer. Kapesh died in 2011, naturally, as he had reached that age. What he taught me, the post-grad certificate, led me out of my solitude, self-pity, and sorrow, and back to life in the body. My mind will be there in the morning. Tonight, let me dance with my beasts while I'm alive. Thank you.